Do you just have those days where it's not even like take it day by day, but it's can almost be like minute by minute? So, how are you doing? Let us know in the comments. Um, I think most states now have decided school's going to be distance learning for the rest of the year. So I think if we had hopes that this new reality would change soon, I don't think it's going to. And so part of me was even hesitant to talk about how to keep track of your child's progress when it's like you already have enough to do, right? But I was also hearing from parents that were saying, how do we do this? How do we capture some of what we're doing at home? And if there is a silver lining, which there's got to be, right, for us being at home for so many weeks, is that I think it's going to be wonderful how many new things you learn about your child. And I want you to be able to remember that. So come August or July, when we're trying to make plans of how we're going to transition your child back into that school building, that you will have a way, if it's a journal, if it's notes on your phone, some way that you capture some of the information that you're going to be learning that you've already learned about your child so far. So if we haven't met before, I'm Charmaine Tanner. I'm a parent, a retired teacher, and I do full-time advocacy. And we do these Facebook Lives every Thursday. And I thought, I haven't done a book giveaway in a while. So this is my number one best-selling book on Amazon, The Art of Advocacy, A Parent's Guide to a Collaborative IEP Process. So at the end, we'll be drawing a lucky winner for the book. And the way that you get more entries into the book drawing is if you make more comments, because what I do is I scroll through the comments with my eyes closed and stop on the lucky person, and they're the winner. So tell us how you're doing, because I totally get that this is like a stressful time, right? And if you've been with us before, you know that I usually have a code word. And today's code word is data. So if you put data in the chat box, my IEP bot will send you a message and you can get signed up. I'll be showing you some of the ways that you can be collecting information about your child and the progress that they're making. And some simple checklists and some more detailed kinds of things. So I'll be emailing that out to folks. So, excuse me, if you're interested, just type data in the chat box. So we are going to get started. And I learn a lot from my husband. Do you learn a lot from your husband? And one of the things that he tells me a lot is, dear, just keep it simple. And I have a hard time doing that. I don't know anybody else. And so it's a great reminder for me. And it's also a good reminder for you to know that there are simple ways that you can keep track of how your child's doing. And we want to talk about those today. So Rochelle is here. She says, "Oy vey, restarting computer already when it was set to go. So thanks for the reading." Yes, it's like, I don't know. Deep breaths are like the best way I can kind of get back together here. So we're going to keep it simple. And you really only need a refrigerator and a cell phone to do these things. So let me know, do you have a refrigerator? Yes? Do you have a cell phone? Thumbs up. Where's my thumb? If you have a refrigerator, if you have a cell phone, you'll be able to do this. And Anita, hey, Anita from Virginia is here. How are you doing? She said she just got a copy of her daughter's temporary learning plan. Distance learning for Fairfax County Public Schools has been chaotic. Major connection problems. So the video learning sessions have started and stopped for 2 weeks. Yeah, it's it's difficult, right? It's challenging because um, even districts that have had platforms set up for distance learning, I mean, they haven't had to be able to get access to thousands of kids in their district, right? So yeah, it's really and that's one of those things where some days you just have to take those deep breaths, right? Um, yeah, it's challenging for all of us. Now, I also hear from parents because of my advocacy work, and they want to have a more data-driven approach. So today we're going to start with the KISS method of collecting data, which is keeping it simple, silly. And after we do the majority of the show about the simple methods, I'm also going to spend a few minutes talking about some more detailed kinds of information that you could be collecting for your child, otherwise known as data. data. So let's dive into I saw this ostrich the other day and I just love his face and look at those lips. And so when I saw this ostrich, it was like, I don't know, maybe I think I look like this ostrich. But I think it's really important to look at the why of what we are doing. And so why is it important that we keep track of what our kids are doing at home? One, we can find out what works and we can share that with the school. So look at this slide. What, if you were a parent watching this scene in your living room, what things would you notice? And you can either pick the son or the daughter or both, but type in the comments, what are some things that you would be able to notice just from observing this, and that would be great information to share with your child's teachers. So I'm going to take a sip of water, type in the comments. What do you notice? Good. Michelle says relaxed seating. Huge. How many of you have preferred seating in your accommodations in your IEP? And usually that means, a lot of times people think, oh, preferred sitting at the front of the class. Well, what if your child had some preferred seating? I know some parents are finding beanbag chairs are like the thing that their kids like the most. And I should have put a picture, and I'll have to add one later, of this hammock swing that fellow parent trailblazer from Colorado had recommended to me. So it's this really cool hammock swing, and it's on a frame, so you don't need to hang anything from the ceiling. And that's been a lifesaver. So yeah, choice in seating. Yeah, Anita says. So look at from that one picture, and let me bring it back up here. We can tell the seating is like a really big thing that stands out. And what else can you look, if you were just observing your kids, what else would you be able to talk about? And I say because we're all at home, but I mean, if we weren't at home, right, it could be, a couple friends studying together. So one of the things might be that they prefer to study with somebody else instead of by themselves. And so If you know that about your child, when you are giving feedback to the teacher, you can share, he does really well with one or two other friends or with a small group, and that will give the teacher information that she can use during the school year. And so be observant about what kinds of things are working. Yeah, and Anita says minimal distractions, having only needed materials nearby. Look at that. Yeah. And so this is a kind of easy data collection that you can be doing, just noticing and jotting down some notes. And we'll talk about ways that you can jot down things. Yeah, and Rochelle's talking about the lighting. It makes a huge difference. Individual choice and what they want to study is like huge, right? My favorite C word, I think, is choice, and that we need to give our kids more choice during the day. So not only will just observing what works help you, but also, let me show you the next slide that would help, find out what doesn't work and share that with the school. So if you were a mom and you walked into your daughter's bedroom and this is what you saw, what would be some things that you can figure out about your daughter that you could share with the teacher and they would have more information? So what seems like it's not working here in this photo? I mean, one of the things, if you were actually there, you would know the time of day. So one of the things that you can be looking at is when your child does best with different activities at different times of day. I think a one that we often think about is like, oh, if math is after lunchtime, my child is tired, they're not going to do well. But look at other things too, as far as time of day. Or does this picture tell you that your child, decided not to eat breakfast that day? You weren't going to have a fight about it. And instead, maybe she's hungry and that's what she needs. So the point is, you can tell a lot. Yes, Carolyn says boring subject. Yes, that would be a great thing. Looks like she needs a break and that perhaps she's exceeded her length of focus. Exactly. So that's the other thing. How long has she been working on this assignment? Can we talk to the teachers and say, my child really does better if we only have 15-minute blocks of time where they have to be really focused. So that kind of information is very helpful, and you want to capture that. The other thing that you want to do and why you want to keep track of this is because you want to notice, is your child making some progress or not so much? I think we're kind of assuming that our kids are going to regress. I mean, they're going to be out of school for 5-6 months. It's like pretty, I think, I don't know, common sense almost, that there's probably going to be some regression when you're not in school for 5 or 6 months. Well, guess what? Some kids are flourishing not being in school. And that's not to say that the school is a bad place or anything like that, but they're flourishing because they have this different environment now that they're learning in. And we want to try and figure out what is that difference and how can we try to replicate that in the fall when we go back to school. And so that's why we want to remember these kinds of things. And Anita says, lacking choice in how to accomplish task at hand. Yeah, I mean, that's huge, right? So we do want to have some way to keep track of if your child's making progress or you just really see them, taking a nosedive. And then if you're a parent that's interested in pursuing something like extended school year services or compensatory services, you really do need some kind of documentation in order to make that happen. And so even these easy and formal ways that I'm going to share with you next, those can be counted as documentation. I don't think it's going to have as much strength or credence if it's not a little bit more objective included in there with your observations. But if you're thinking of asking for extended school year services, if you're thinking of asking for compensatory services once school starts again, then you really do need some kind of documentation to go into that IEP meeting with. So we're going to be looking at that. Oh, and I need to also tell you that tomorrow, Friday, April 24th, I'm interviewing Keith Peck, who's the attorney that represents several families in Hawaii. A federal lawsuit was filed by Keith Peck against the Hawaii Department of Education, and it's all about compensatory education. So let me know in the box, are you interested in learning more about compensatory services and what you have to do and some of the nuances of it, plus learn about this new federal lawsuit and get the inside scoop from the attorney. That will be live tomorrow at noon Mountain Time again. So let's look at some ways that we can keep track of. So the other thing is, if you're going to be asking for additional services to try and make up for lost time, you really want to have some kind of baseline and ongoing data. But that's kind of like part two. We're going to do some other things here first. The nice thing about collecting this information is you are going to get a more individualized IEP the next time you have an IEP meeting because of all the things that you're learning now about your child, how they learn. All of those things are going to help you have a richer, truly individualized IEP when you go back in the fall. We keep saying that in hopes, right? It's really going to happen. And like I say, you're going to know your child better as a learner. And you're going to be picking up on cues that are going to be like these nuggets that you're going to want to share with your child's teachers next year. Another wonderful outcome is that you are starting to get a chance to really see some of the curriculum that your child is using. I know I was talking to one mom and it was like she had no idea that her son was having to do all of these grade level worksheets without any kind of accommodations or modifications, which in some subjects he needed. And it's like, this is what they've been doing. But also on the good side is like, yeah, you can learn. This is how they've been helping my child learn how to read. I love it. I love having this. Or these are the manipulatives that my son loves using for math. So it's like, oh, I wish I had known this before. So you are going to learn about the curriculum that your child is using. And Laura has a comment and she said, yes, compensatory services when related services were not provided. Yeah, so Laura, that would be, I think that's going to be a common one for compensatory services because some of those related services really don't translate to doing with telehealth, right? So yeah, I hope you can come tomorrow with us when we're talking about that. Hey, Lissa from Idaho, how are you? She's one of our parent trailblazers, which is our monthly membership group. So I think there's a lot of advantages. The other thing I think about is you guys are going to be able to update your About Me book that you send to the teacher each back to school night or whatever. And again, it's going to be richer because of the things that you are learning right now, working with your child at home. So, KISS, keep it simple, silly. So, here's the question of the day. You ready? Drum roll. How can a refrigerator help you keep track of how well your child is doing? So, what do you think? I want to see some comments. Remember, we have a book giveaway. So, yeah, Carolyn said that she's interested in the show tomorrow with the attorney. So how is a refrigerator helpful? Anybody got any ideas? I've actually talked about this on previous shows. What you can do with your refrigerator, because it's already kind of a multi-purpose tool in our house, right? Is you can just have Post-it notes up there. You can have a piece of paper. You can have a wipe off board, as long as you maybe take a picture of what you write down before you erase it. Yes, a place for posting the visual schedule. Yeah. I mean, that is like where I have our kind of schedule we have for our grandkids when they come over for homeschooling. So use your refrigerator and just do this ongoing list of what you notice when your child is working, what you notice when your child is excited, all of these things. And I do have like a sheet that you could use, you could print off. But I mean, like I said, you can use Post-it notes, you can use just a piece of paper on your refrigerator. I like Liz's thinking. She says, bribe food in the refrigerator. Yes. To keep a chart there. Yeah. I mean, it's perfect because you see it. It's not like filed away in a folder and it's like, oh, shoot, yeah. Post everything. Marcy says, post everything where you can see it. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And Caroline says, since it's the central hub of the house, it makes it easy to report data. Yeah, and it's like, when you're waiting for the water to boil, you can just jot down a few things from the day. It doesn't have to be a line graph with a goal line, an aim line. It doesn't have to be that sophisticated. What you notice is like huge. Believe me, you got to have faith that what you know about your kid is enormous. Oops, I think I'm going backwards. It's a Groundhog Day. So this is a form that I came up with. And if you want a copy of that, just type in the word data, and I have that written here somewhere, in the chat box, and then we can get you set up for the email. So on this form, I have some different categories. And like I said, you don't have to use this. This is just a suggestion. But it has a space where you can write down what was the schoolwork that was assigned for that day that you're writing down your notes. And then across from that, other activities that your child did, because learning is going on with so many activities, and we want to capture, like, was your child fascinated with this new chapter book, or, what do they like doing during the day? Then down below in the middle, it's on the left, it says what went well today, because that helps us get grounded, and something probably went well. And if we don't write it down, sometimes we forget those little moments and it gets frustrating. So write down what went well. And then across from that, we also want to capture what didn't go well, because that allows us then to make some kind of changes, right? And then the bottom row on the left says what my child loved during today. And again, to capture those interests, because we want your IEP to build on interests and strengths. So we're going to capture that information while you're at home. And then the last box on the right there, the small box says accommodations or modifications that are working or aren't working. Again, that is critical information. And then at the very bottom, and I think there it is. So on the very bottom is any kinds of questions or comments that you want to give as feedback to the teacher. And what I think is helpful is if we have those conversations as we're going along through this distance learning plan, because we want to make sure we let teachers know some feedback, like this is working well. We would love more lessons like this. Or, he was not interested in this math game, on the computer at all. We got to find an alternative. So that kind of confirmation or conversation needs to be going on a regular basis. And I think that's really helpful. And like I said, I have this and some other simple sheets that I've written up. So type the word data if you want to get these free checklists. And let me see. So Rochelle says, good way to gather info to update a PCP person-centered plan too. Yes, so this is going to be great information that you have about your child that can be used in so many situations. I mean, it could be used, if your child is older and has a job. Excuse me, you're going to learn, maybe some hints that you can give the employer about this is how my child learns best. So think about the good things that can happen when you do this. Now, you've probably heard this. You can take a photo of their finished work. There's Heather in our Trailblazer group, and she does a great job of taking photos of her son's finished work. And then you can email that to teachers. If some teachers are saying we don't even want the work back, which isn't so great. But yeah, so you have this, you don't have to collect every single one. Now you've got the photo. And even better than taking a photo is taking a video of your child working and email it to the teachers. Let the teachers see, when we do this, multiple choice comprehension worksheet, I look at my son and all he is doing is just like clicking. You can tell he's not even taking time to read all of those multiple choice things. And so that's good feedback for the teacher. So it's like, okay, we've got to teach him how to slow down and figure out, when you have multiple choice, questions, you want to throw out the ones that are obviously wrong, The point is, you are going to learn that because you're working with your child, and you don't want to just go, that's amazing. You want to share it with the teacher because the teacher is the one that's going to be developing all these different lessons for your child, right? The other thing that I've been doing is I love using otter.ai as an app on my phone to record my observations, notes to myself. So you might have seen, if you're interested in otter.ai, I did a video a while ago on how to use it for like recording IEP meetings and such, because what is so neat about and maybe I can show you on my phone. What's so neat about it is you also get a free transcript. So otter.ai is free, and then you get a free transcript. So I should do myself here. So I don't know. So these are different notes that I have on here, and I'm going to press record. And so what I've been using Otter for is when I have those things like I can't stop thinking about it, I need to get it down and I don't want to forget it. I pick up my cell phone and I just give myself this audio message. And like I said, there's lots of apps that do that. But the neat thing, and I'm trying to get it so oops, not the glare, is, I don't know if you can tell, but it's doing a transcription. It's typing what I'm saying in real time. And so then, because I'm kind of multi-sensory, I'm going to stop it now. So what helps me is I can hear my message back and I can also visually read it. So you could use Otter.ai if you don't want to jot things down on your refrigerator. You could use some kind of recording app on your phone. Otter AI also has, you can go, on your computer and use it that way. But that would be one way that you could be collecting information. Saving work samples from each week. The hint is make sure you have a date on each paper. Actual work samples are great documentation of what's been going on. Some students have a student planner, like a lot of times in middle school, they'll have, a school planner that the students use. You could use that student planner. You could have your child record some of the things that they've been doing. If you have a paper calendar, you could jot things down on your calendar. The idea is that you pick a method that works best for you. And if you're going to have your child help, then a method that works well for your child too. So I think it would be interesting to get our kids' feedback and take on how things went during the day, right? And also for them to, just be a part of, kind of that. It's another self-advocacy skill where you're being able to keep track of yourself and make goals and see how you're doing and all that good stuff. So yeah, there are a multitude ways to jot down things that you want to remember to share with the staff. The other thing that you can do, and I don't think many teachers are doing this, but you can make a written request for the teacher to do some progress monitoring. It's like, what a concept. And of course, it's going to have to be through distance, right? I mean, you're not taking your child to the school. So you have to look at not every goal, maybe, can be, in a distance situation, worked on for progress monitoring. But what would be wonderful, and especially if you're looking for documentation to request extended school year or to request compensatory services, is to ask the teacher to do, like I think it was last week I was giving the example of, if one of your child's goals is increasing the amount of sight words that they know, and the teacher has, a deck of flashcards and they show your child and they record yes or no if your child got the sight word right. That would be something easy to do for the teacher, and just like a Zoom, meeting with your child, the teacher can hold up the word, your child can say what the word is, and so what would be great is for the teacher to actually do some baseline data now, where your child is now. I mean, ideally, we could have done this a few weeks ago, but a few weeks ago, we were like really on survival mode. Now we're like, okay, now we got some ideas here. So start now, right? Have the teacher do some kind of progress monitoring through video with your child. Have them record that, have them send you the link to that, and then you do the same. You continue to do some data collection also. And if that's just informally writing notes on your refrigerator, that's cool. But and then, and we'll talk about this in a minute, some more detailed ways that you can collect data. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. Just a reminder that tomorrow we have another Facebook Live at noon. Oops, it would help if I showed you the slide. I'll be interviewing Keith Peck, the attorney that just filed a federal lawsuit against Hawaii's Department of Education around the issue of compensatory services and students not getting a free, appropriate public education at this time. So if you're interested, tune in tomorrow, noon Mountain Time, and we'll be doing a show about that. So if you want more data-driven approach, stay tuned to this second part here. And keep the comments coming because we'll be doing that book giveaway. Here are some ideas. So again, this, like, I don't know, I guess I could have made this into 2 slides. So anyway, here are 7 steps that you can do so you can do more detailed progress monitoring. So I'll read these out loud. The first step is to read your child's current IEP, write down the goals, and just copy them from that current IEP. Now, we're not talking about if your child has a distance learning plan, we're not talking about using goals identified there. We're talking about your child's actual full-blown IEP that was written as a team. So look in their current IEP and write down their goals. And then step 2 is to look below the goal usually and see what type of data collection is listed, and write that down on your form. And I developed a form that you can fill this in. So yeah, you don't have to worry about copying it now. If you write the word data in the comments, then you'll get this by email. So 1, read the current IEP, write down the goals. 2, look and see, did they say they're going to do like work samples? Did they say teacher observation? Did they say weekly probes? See what type of data collection they wrote in the IEP, because we want to try and use as much of what they have been using at school. Number 3, look below that goal, and it's usually will list how often the progress monitoring is going to be done. Copy that down. So did they say they're going to collect, data weekly, every other week, every month? Write that down. And then step 4 is where you come in as far as we need you to document baseline data of how they're doing at home right now for each of those goals. And that can, be intimidating. So if you have questions about that, come back in here and put them in. Like if you read your kid's IEP and then it's like, how in the world am I going to progress monitor this? In a day or 2, you can come back to this thread and we can talk about that. Number 5, when you are keeping track and jotting things down, you're going to write down the results, any additional notes that you have. Step 6 is to continue taking data for each IEP goal, at least monthly, preferably every other week. And then email your progress monitoring data to the teacher as you collect it, because, this is not collecting data to be like, got you, see, my kid is regressing and you're going to owe me these comp ed services. Being proactive, what this data collection is for, is to make sure that this distance learning time is productive. We don't want our kids to regress, right? And so by having you collect information about how your child is doing and sharing that on an ongoing basis throughout this distance learning, you're going to be able to share with the teacher what works, what doesn't work, and have the teacher make some adjustments, okay? And then the other side of this data collection coin is if you do want to ask for extended school year, if you do want to request compensatory services, which some kids are really going to be eligible for, right? You need some kind of documentation about how well your child's been doing the summer. Otherwise, you'll come back in the fall and they'll say, oh, we need to do some data collection. We need to do it for at least 6 weeks. So, I mean, everything gets pushed back and postponed. So if we can be proactive now and use a little bit of time now to collect this information, you're going to be like set and you're going to be happy. It's going to be nice, believe me. So as I said, I have this form. I'm going to change the format because I'm going to make it into like a fillable PDF. So then if you want, when I email you the link for this, then you can just fill it in on your computer, or if you'd rather, you can print it off and just, handwrite things in, whatever works, whatever whatever is going to be something that you can be consistent with is what you want to do. Hey, Courtney. Courtney is an awesome advocate in the state of Washington. And she says, thanks for talking about documentation. Yes. And I don't know, Courtney, if you were on with us when we talked about all you need is a cell phone and a refrigerator, and you can do this documentation. And Lissa says, thanks for the much appreciated input and support. You're welcome, Lissa. You are doing good. So this is a more detailed technical way of collecting information. And for some of you, that's your comfort level. Do not think that you have to do everything as formal as I'm suggesting for people that want that technique, right? I want you to feel comfortable with doing whatever works for you. And if that's on Saturday morning when you're sitting outside and having a cup of coffee and you just pick up your phone and you go, I'm just going to talk about how the week went. And that's going to be how I collect my data. I mean, that's okay. Because the truth is, our mental health, our kids' mental health, takes precedent over sit down, I've got to ask you these questions, come on, we have to get this done. That's not what we want to have happen with our kids, right? So just take it easy, give yourself grace. Know if it's like Charmaine, I'll be lucky if I can talk into my cell phone every Saturday morning. That's okay. You just do what you can do. There's no judgment here. So let me know, do you have any questions? Do you have ways that you've been using these first few weeks that we've been at home with our kids that has worked for you? So Courtney, do you have any data collection tips that you've been doing with your son or that you've been sharing with parents that you work with? Keeping hydrated is a good thing to do. You could keep track. How many glasses of water do I have? So I appreciate you guys being here, especially when it's like hectic days. So it's time for us to do our book giveaway. Videos. Yeah, Courtney says videos are a great way. And she says, I take notes on the worksheets he does too. Yeah, so that's cool. Or, and that's like great feedback for the teachers, right? So, yeah, that's a great one. And it's like right in the moment, you can do this. Like he could totally do this independently, or I had to pull out the manipulatives. I had to do this in order for him to really be successful. All of that is like so cool. And Courtney says, how much does he independently do something? How much support he needed? Exactly. And so that would be cool. I could add that to the more formal data sheet, because I've done that a lot, just like initials like V needed a verbal prompt, or, I for did it independently. Because I know when you bring, or your child brings home things from school, and it's like, did he really do this by himself? Or did somebody else give him the answers? And so think about what information you would have liked to have gotten in a progress report, or what information you would have liked to have gotten from the teacher on a weekly basis about how your child did at school. Then now that teacher's in that position. So what information do you think that teacher could use with your expertise of knowing your child? So thanks. And Rochelle says, try to keep a separate file folder of emails for distance data. Yeah, so, if you collect things, and you have a folder on your computer where you put all the emails and the, IEPs and all that kind of stuff, then yes, whatever email that you're sending to the teacher now with feedback, make sure that you put that in that little folder on your computer, because you want to be able to collect all of that for the end of the year. So we'll close out with the book drawing, but also while I'm scrolling through the comments, I wondered, how many of you think you will be asking about compensatory ed services? I'm just curious. And like I said, tomorrow I interview the attorney, Keith Pack. So be on here. It'll be noon Mountain Time. Okay, so I'm going to close my eyes. This is my scientific way for doing giveaways. And I'm going to stop on a comment. Look, Rochelle's relaxed setting. I don't know if you have a copy of my book yet, Rochelle. If you do, I'll still send it to you. And you can pass it on to a friend, right? So Friday, we're having our special guest, Keith Peck, the attorney for parents who filed the federal lawsuit against the Hawaii Department of Ed. So be with us tomorrow if you like. I'm going to be posting a question in my Visions and Voices Together Facebook page about choices for topics, or a space for you to give a topic suggestion for next Thursday's show. So I'm trying to kind of go with the flow. The other thing that I might be doing is I might be having an attorney on next Thursday, because the deadline for Secretary of Education's report to Congress is, depending on how you count 30 days, is April 26th or April 27th. So I'm thinking next week, the hot topic is going to be probably what the Secretary of Education's report was. So we try to be timely. So we'll just see what goes. But thanks for being here. I hope you take lots of deep breaths and know it's going to be okay. And also to know that your child can make progress during this distance learning. So keep the faith, and we shall see you again tomorrow live. Take care, guys, and have a good afternoon.